On today's show, Donovan Mitchell, he's not leaving.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It's an emergency episode of Locked On Cavs. The Cleveland Cavaliers and Donovan Mitchell have agreed upon a 3-year, $150 million contract extension. Donovan Mitchell staying in Cleveland. Thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. You can find the show, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere else you get your podcasts. Leave us a 5-star review. Write some nice things in the comments as well. Also, you can check this out on YouTube. The Locked On Cavs YouTube channel. If you're watching this video, give it a thumbs up, click that notification bell, make sure you are subscribed. If you're not watching this video, well, go watch this video and then do all those things that I just said. Proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA, that's LOCKED NBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. I'm Danny Cunningham. You might know me from covering the Cavs at places such as 92.3 The Fan, Cleveland Magazine, and of course right here at Locked On Cavs. Huge news this morning as Donovan Mitchell, the first to report his own contract extension, that he is sticking around in Cleveland. This is such a giant win for this Cavaliers organization. We are going to talk about it on today's show, as well as what could be next this offseason, as now the Cavs they're on the board with their first move of the offseason, and it's the biggest possible move that they could have made. But going back now just under 2 years, early September, I believe it was September 1st of 2022, the Cavaliers made a blockbuster trade with the Utah Jazz that landed them Donovan Mitchell. It sent out a treasure trove of draft picks, as well as Lauri Markkanen, Colin Sexton, and Ochai Agbaji. And there was a warm feeling around it, but I think a lot of people nationally, so I know a lot of people nationally felt, oh, well, that it's just a rental. Donovan Mitchell's not going to sign a contract extension there. There's no way he's going to be in Cleveland long term. And that put, I think, a damper on that move for some people. And I understood why. Because anytime you see your team trade for a superstar, certainly a player the caliber of Donovan Mitchell, you want that guy to be around for a long time. And now that that commitment from Donovan has been made to Cleveland, it feels so much different for everybody involved. It does. Because now, not only did the Cavs trade for a guy who has been, at worst, a top 15 player in the NBA since they traded for him. I think it's definitely a top 10 player in the NBA in that time. They got him to sign a contract extension. They got him to say, I want to be in Cleveland. I want to stay with this organization. I like the direction this organization is going in terms of building towards championship contention. That's what Donovan Mitchell did when he pressed send on that tweet early on Tuesday morning. That's what happened. And that is absolutely awesome for the Cavaliers. So it's a 3-year extension. It's worth $150 million. So that extension will take him up to, and the last year is a player option. I should note that as well. But this extension takes him up to 10 years of service in the NBA, which that means when he reaches that point, he is eligible to sign a massive contract extension where 35% of the cap he can sign for up to 5 years. And we don't know exactly what the cap is going to be, but a number that should be around $400 million. That is the next step in this. And obviously that can't happen for a number of years, but the Cavs and Donovan Mitchell are in a great place. I think Cavs fans should be super excited about this. I really, truly do. This is one of the biggest days in franchise history. No, it's not ahead of, the Cavs winning the finals or even the Cavs winning the Eastern Conference any of the times that they did that. But in terms of things that happened that weren't actual basketball things, actual things on the floor, this is up there with like winning the LeBron draft lottery. That is how big, and it's not that big. It's not that, but it's sort of in that next tier. Because the Cavs got a guy who, again, at worst, has been a top 15 player in basketball, to sign a contract extension and stay in Cleveland. What a lot of people thought might just be a 2-year rental. So there were people who last offseason were advocating for the Cavaliers to trade Donovan Mitchell away because they thought there was no chance he would sign a contract extension in Cleveland. That could not have been more wrong. I've said from day one, and I've been in the locker room a lot around Donovan Mitchell in his time in Cleveland. I've gotten to know him on an okay level. I'm not going to act like we're best friends or anything, but I know him a little bit. I think that the noise that he wanted out has always been overblown. Always. I'm not here to say that he's going to be a member of the Cavs for the rest of his life. I'm not doing that. These things can really change quickly in the NBA. We've seen that. But Donovan Mitchell hasn't ever struck me as someone that was not happy to be in Cleveland. There was always the noise about New York, and I get it. He's from that area, and I'm not going to say there was no truth to that. I'm not going to say that. But I don't think it was always some foregone conclusion that Donovan Mitchell wanted out. I think that was unfair. I think that was wrong. And I think today proved that was never true. Because if he always wanted out, if he just didn't want to be in Cleveland, he doesn't sign a contract extension. He doesn't. I'm not saying he asked for a trade, but there were other signals that could have been sent. Instead, Donovan has been happy in Cleveland. Donovan has played basketball at the highest level of his career. He's been a better basketball player with the Cavaliers than he ever was with the Utah Jazz. That's not up for debate. It's not. And now he is locked in long-term with this organization in what is absolutely a massive win for him, a massive win for Kobe Altman, a massive win for Dan Gilbert, a massive win for Mike Gansey, the rest of that front office, Kenny Atkinson, so on and so forth. Everyone with the Cavs over at Cleveland Clinic Courts today should be throwing a party. This is so big for a team that it's tough to be a star destination in a small market. And I'm not saying that the Cavs are, but the only other star they've been able to get to stick around has been one that was born 30 miles away in LeBron. And even LeBron left twice. Donovan Mitchell staying in Cleveland is so big for the franchise. It's so big for this team. And now I think it gives some clarity. I think it gives a lot of clarity for what the Cavs can do next. They were the one of the very few teams that hadn't made a move this offseason. They're now on the board. Now they've got clarity as far as, and I think that this is something that, they didn't wake up today and this was all of a sudden done. This is something that I think has been done for a few days at least. And there has been, there's been reason for optimism for a while with Donovan. There has been. And that stuff didn't come out of nowhere. It's not as if people were just making that up out of thin air. Like, there have been signs that this was going to be something that got done. And I think you started to see that because, you stopped seeing Donovan Mitchell in all these absolutely ridiculous fake trades at various places that would just try and get you to click on their link so you could see, oh, we're sending Donovan Mitchell here because it's fun and why not? Those things were never going to happen. They never were going to happen. Again, this is such a big day for the Cavs. It is such a big day for Donovan Mitchell. And now, the Cavs should be celebrating this. They should be celebrating this a lot because it's really difficult to do what they did. To trade for a guy that's in the top 15, make him a better basketball player, and get him to commit for the long term. That's a tough thing to do, especially in today's NBA where players move around so often. So often. The Cavs should celebrate this. The Cavs deserve to celebrate this. That doesn't mean the work is done. They still have a lot to do. They have a long offseason ahead of them where they need to, I think, change some things with this roster. But I think now they can start to get into that. I really do. I want to talk about why exactly this is such a big win for the Cavs as an organization. Because it truly is. It's not just that, oh, they got a guy to sign a contract extension. But considering what they gave up, what Donovan Mitchell has turned into, and what the future looks like in Cleveland, this might be a bigger win for the Cavs than it even looks like it is on the surface. And I'll tell you why next, right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which of course makes getting tickets easier and faster if you want to go to a baseball game. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer you get to first pitch. I mean, isn't that awesome? If you want to wait to the last minute to find your seats, you can actually get a better deal with Game Time because they've got those killer last minute deals. They've got all-in prices on the app. That is something that is so important to me, seeing exactly what I'm going to pay and not being surprised by any last minute fees or things like that. Plus, one of the features I love about Game Time is they've got the view from your seat. Where you're sitting, I want to know what the field, what the court, what the rink is going to look like when I'm buying my seats. Game Time will show me that on the Game Time app. That's something that's very important. And of course, the lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets. So a couple weeks ago, I decided, it was a Thursday morning, I said, hey, you know what? I want to go watch the Guardians play. They were taking on the Seattle Mariners. So what do? I pull up the Game Time app on my phone. I find a great deal for some awesome seats, and I pull the trigger. I buy tickets through Game Time, and I go enjoy a Guardians win over the Seattle Mariners. I had all-you-can-eat seats in the club section. It was amazing. Absolutely loved my experience, and you can have that experience too if you use Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDON NBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So this is a big win for the Cavs as an organization for a number of different reasons. So when they made that trade, when they traded for Donovan Mitchell, there was always the potential for it to go bad. Lauri Markkanen has turned into a fantastic basketball player there. I personally do not believe that he would have turned into that sort of basketball player here. I just don't think that the opportunity was going to be there for Lauri, considering the Cavs had just drafted Evan Mobley the year before. And Evan Mobley looked like a guy that was going to be on a star track. So moving on from him, I thought made sense. I did. Especially when you get a star back in Donovan Mitchell. Now, Lauri has turned into a fantastic player. Again, like I said, a better player in Utah than I think he would have been in Cleveland. But that has been something that, okay, the Cavs still got the best player in the deal, but Utah got a really good player on a very good contract in Lauri Markkanen. In addition to Colin Sexton, who's been fine. I think he's a fine basketball player. And Ochai Agbaji, who the Jazz have already moved on from, certainly has not produced like a lottery pick. Additionally, the Jazz got a ton of draft picks, where Utah essentially controls Cleveland's draft for the next several years. Well, now, the one thing, after thinking about how big this is for the Cavs, the thing that I thought about next was, wow, some of those picks that Utah got that summer, where remember, it was not only the Donovan Mitchell trade that they made, it was also the Rudy Gobert trade with Minnesota that they made. But a lot of those picks that they got, and things can change very quickly in the NBA. There's no doubt about that. They can absolutely change. But a lot of those picks that they got do not look nearly as valuable as they once did. Now, if Donovan Mitchell is in Cleveland for this entire extension, and even if he signs an extension coming off of this, which you absolutely think is a possibility here, Utah is not going to be getting great draft assets from the Cavs. Now, the Cavs feel much, much better today. There could have been some really dark days. There could have been some really Brooklyn Nets type of days. And maybe I don't think that bad, because I think the Cavs still had a lot of talent with guys like Evan Mobley and Darius Garland and even Jarrett Allen too. The Cavs were never going to be awful, but it's hard to build when you're expensive, which they would have been, don't have a superstar, which I don't think that they would have, and you don't have your draft picks. Would have been really difficult to dig out of that hole. That would have been essentially, they could have been in mediocrity for quite a while. That's what could have happened. Instead, now, the Cavs are going to be giving Utah, I think on average, the 24th pick. And you can live with that. And those pick swaps now probably not going to convey, because I don't see Utah being better than Cleveland for the duration of the terms of that trade. So that is one of the biggest wins as part of this is, that trade's going to hurt a lot less now. If you had a question as far as who won the trade, I think the jury was still out on it until today. But I think today closes that book. I think the Cavs absolutely 100% unequivocally won that trade. They traded for the guy that is now the second best player in Cavs franchise history. That's what Donovan Mitchell is. Yeah, Kyrie Irving hit the biggest shot in franchise history, one of the biggest shots in NBA history, but Donovan Mitchell is better at basketball in Cleveland than Kyrie Irving was. Point blank. Like, that's what this is. And getting him to sign an extension, getting him to stay in Cleveland is a huge win. I don't know how many times I've said huge win on this podcast, but it's probably not enough to justify just how big today is for the Cavaliers. It's probably not. It's that massive. And I think Cavs fans should be over the moon thrilled with how today has gone, how this offseason has gone so far. I know there hasn't been any other action as of now. I'm recording this, of course, at 10:15 Tuesday morning here. So there hasn't been more action quite yet. But this is what I think a lot of things we're waiting on. I really do. This is such a big win for the Cavs. I cannot state that enough. Now, it gives them clarity, too. And that's a really important thing because I don't think anyone there was walking on eggshells, certainly. I don't believe that was the case. But it's hard to go and make big splashes or really even moves in the offseason until you have clarity on what your best player is going to do, on what his future is going to look like. And now the Cavs have that. They absolutely have that. Donovan Mitchell is going to be around for a while. Donovan Mitchell is going to be, I think, and I thought this was an interesting thing that was brought up during Kenny Atkinson's introductory press conference on Monday. But with the player development thing, they talked about how they don't think Donovan Mitchell is done getting better yet. And I would agree with that. I still think that there are things he can improve upon. I still think that there are things for Donovan Mitchell that he's getting better at, and it's not like he's out of his prime. What today did was Donovan Mitchell signed up to spend the best years of his career in Cleveland. Think about that for a second. Donovan Mitchell, when he tweeted out that he's not leaving, that he's staying in Cleveland, and then the numbers on the extension came out, that told me Donovan Mitchell has decided that he is going to spend the best years of his career as a member of the Cleveland Cavaliers. That's what I learned today. And that, more than anything, we can talk about a lot of things that should make you happy with this. But Donovan Mitchell deciding to spend the best years of his career in Cleveland with the Cavaliers is amazing. It is. That is a gigantic win. That is probably the best part of this. Because we talk so much about transactions and all the movement that happens in basketball. But it's rare, especially in a market like Cleveland, unfortunately, to have a player the caliber of Donovan Mitchell and that player say, I want to spend the best years of my career here. That's what he did today. He might not spend the rest of his career here, but he's going to spend the best years he has as a member of the Cavaliers. I don't think if you're a Cavs fan, you could ask for anything more than that. I don't. I think that is the absolute best case scenario. Now, of course, in a couple years, everyone's going to want Donovan to sign another contract extension in Cleveland. We'll see what things look like then. I'm not ready to make a prediction on that. It's a long time and things can change in the NBA. But for today, the Cavaliers earned Donovan Mitchell's commitment to spend the best years of his career in Cleveland. That's so important. That is a huge win. That is absolutely an awesome thing for the Cavaliers. Now, what's the team going to look like around Donovan Mitchell? How do they move forward now that they've got a commitment from him to be in Cleveland? Let's talk about that next right here on Locked On Cavs. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day and you have to turn down the volume because it's so loud, there's so much screaming and it's giving you a headache? Well, make the switch today to Locked On Sports Today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel that's programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. That's what you want. You want the Donovan Mitchell story without me having to scream at you. I haven't screamed at you. Maybe there's been a little bit of excitement, but I haven't screamed at you. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So now with the Cavs, I think things shift to, okay, well, what does the rest of the roster look like? We know, as I record this, and let me check to make sure that nothing else has popped up as I'm speaking here, but as we record this, there have not been any other moves made by the Cavaliers. Donovan Mitchell signing his contract extension is their first move of this offseason, first move of free agency. Obviously, the NBA draft is come and gone. Jalen Tyson, I don't forget about you, but the first move of the free agency period for the Cavs has been this. There has not been any other trades, nothing yet. But now I think is when you can see that start to ramp up. I personally am of the belief that Darius Garland should be on this basketball team next season. I do not think Darius Garland should be traded. And I know there was reporting right after the Cavs lost to the Boston Celtics that should Mitchell sign an extension, Darius Garland and his agency, Clutch Sports, Rich Paul, of course, the president there, would approach Kobe Altman about trying to get a trade for Darius to find him a new home. And I certainly understand that, and I think that is a possibility, but I don't think it's as foregone a conclusion as many people think that it is. I have talked to people over the last couple of weeks that say that's just a little bit blown out of proportion, that Darius does like being in Cleveland, that he might not want out, and I think that is something that is absolutely worth mentioning. That being said, I do think that Jared Allen should be somebody that the Cavs are now really entertaining trade offers on. And you might say, well, what does that have to do with Donovan Mitchell? And you'd be right. Donovan Mitchell and Jared Allen don't play the same position. In fact, they're awesome together on the court. That's one of the Cavs' best pairings. But I think that moving on from Jared Allen would open up things a little bit more for Donovan Mitchell. Yeah, that pick and roll might not be as potent between Mitchell and Evan Mobley, but I think it is something that could give the Cavs a more balanced offense and bring this organization, bring this basketball team closer to championship contention. Because right now, I don't think they're there. I do not think that they are in championship contention at this moment, but I think that there are avenues to get there. And I think having Donovan Mitchell on board and having him as someone that's going to be here for the next couple of years makes it a little bit easier. If you're Kobe Altman, if you're Mike Gansey, if you're the rest of this front office, it makes it a little bit easier to make these moves, to know that you have the commitment of a superstar. So if you have to trade away a member of your core four, you know that Donovan Mitchell is here for it. You know that Donovan Mitchell is going to be on this team, and Donovan Mitchell is going to be leading this team as far as he possibly can and playing the best basketball of his career. So I do think it makes sense that if Jared Allen is receiving interest from around the league, and I think that there are a lot of teams that are interested in Jared Allen, and with good reason. He's a really good player coming off of a great year on a very manageable contract. You can field those calls if you're the Cavs. I think that became solidified today. Again, I don't think they should trade Darius Garland. I think Darius and Donovan can and have worked in the backcourt. I think that what they did Donovan's first year in Cleveland is the blueprint. I think you can throw this past year out. I don't think it matters for Darius because of everything that he went through. I just think it was a nightmare of a season, and I think he's going to be a much better basketball player this upcoming year. And I also think it's worth mentioning the market for Darius Garland is not great. It's not to say that teams aren't interested, but what landing spots are still left? New Orleans was, I thought, a landing spot. Well, they traded for DeJounte Murray. I thought San Antonio would be a landing spot as well. They signed Chris Paul. I'm not sure what landing spots make a ton of sense for Darius Garland. I don't know. There are some, I'm sure, but no one's going to pay what he is worth on the trade market. So when you bring that into consideration, it makes far less sense to trade him away. So now I think that all eyes should pivot to, should the Cavs trade Jared Allen? Should they be involved in talks with other teams to move him for, a wing? And I think it could be a little bit easier to trade Jared Allen and some other stuff for a guy like Brandon Ingram than it would have been to trade Darius Garland for a high-level wing. I just think that's, considering the seasons that they're coming off of, I think that's where we're at here. So the Cavs getting a commitment from Donovan Mitchell now, I believe, allows them to proceed with the rest of their offseason, to start improving the team. There are still a solid number of free agent names that I think make sense for the Cavs out there. Like guys like, I thought Tobias Harris would have been a good fit, but once he signed for, $26 million over the next 2 years, okay, that's out of the Cavs price range. They can't afford a guy like that. I think that someone like Gary Trent Jr. makes sense. I think someone like Malik Beasley makes sense. I think that the Cavs need to find more shooting. They've got shooting on the roster, but you can never have too much of it. But I think we start to hear the Cavs more interested in outside free agents now than we have for the past 48 hours. I think that's where things are at because of Donovan Mitchell signing up to be in Cleveland long term. And I think it's everything that Cavs fans ever could have hoped it would be. And today, if you're a Cavs fan, if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, celebrate. This is a huge day for the organization. This is a huge day as a fan. Days like this don't come around often. Think about how frequently this organization hasn't been able to get this type of stuff done, where LeBron wouldn't sign super long extensions, where he would go on a year-by-year basis with the Cavaliers. And, you would see guys like Kyrie Irving ask out and not want to be in Cleveland. Yeah, Kevin Love signed an extension, but when he signed that extension, he was nowhere near the caliber player Donovan Mitchell is. Today is a huge day for this franchise. Today is a huge day for this fan base. Enjoy it. Celebrate it. Be happy about it. Because the Cavs today, a top 15 player in the NBA said, I want to spend the best years of my career in Cleveland. And that is something that absolutely everybody that's a Cavs fan, that is affiliated with this organization, should be thrilled with and should be proud of. Thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. We will have a ton of stuff this week. Donovan Mitchell going to be a member of the Cavaliers for the foreseeable future after he signs a 3-year contract extension. I believe that can be made official this weekend. I am still planning to do a mailbag episode late in the week. Drop your questions. We'll talk Donovan Mitchell. We'll talk trades. We'll talk whatever you guys want. Drop your questions in the comments on this video. Or you can always tweet your questions. I'm at Real D Cunningham, so hit me up there. We will get into so much more. There's more Donovan Mitchell stuff to talk about, trades, free agency, all of it will be coming your way on Locked On Cavs throughout this week. You can find me on Twitter again. I'm Danny Cunningham at Real D Cunningham. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day.